Hey, Mom. Hey, welcome to your favorite podcast, Letters to an Imperfectly Perfect Mom. This show delivers parenting, positivity, and a promise for moms to know we don't have to be perfect. Each week, we want to inspire you to take what you hear, develop your knowledge, improve your habits, and boost your confidence. All of that is to help you be a successful mom for your children. Remember, it's okay to be imperfect, and that's exactly what makes you perfect. Now, here's your host, Coach Denna Michelle.
Welcome to Air Denna Michelle. Should the cabin lose pressure, oxygen masks will drop from the overhead area. Please place your mask over your own mouth and nose before assisting others. Enjoy your flight. We hear this every time before we take off in the plane. This is true for our everyday life. We need to take care of ourselves before helping others, and that includes the children who are around us. Let the coaches at Denna Michelle help you to learn to take care of yourself first to be better for the children around you. Coaching works on the idea that you have all of the answers inside of you. The job of the coach is simply just to help you realize your potential and be confident in yourself as you are imperfectly perfect. Our caring and knowledgeable coaches at Denna Michelle are standing by to help you solve any painful or difficult parts about caring for children. Whether you need help with challenging behaviors, dealing with trauma or stress, or if you just need basic best practices, or you just want to boost your confidence, we can help. Coaching Calls with Denna Michelle is designed to help you to map out a path that will help you to reach your goals and make life easier for you and the children you care for. When you're ready, you can connect with one of our awesome coaches. To schedule a call, you can go to www.dennamichelle.com. That's www.dennamichelle.com. Or you can email us at teamdm@dennamichelle.com. Or you can reach us by phone at 414-207-4525.
Dear trauma-facing mom, thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen to me talk about trauma. Being trauma-informed is very important when it comes to having children. Most parents believe that children don't go through a lot, but they actually do. Some of the warning signs for dealing with trauma that you can look for in your child can be withdrawal from their usual habits or activities that they are liking, anger, so having outbursts or changes in their behaviors, changes in their food intake, like maybe eating more or eating less. They may become more self-conscious of their image, so caring more about their hair, their body, whether they're too skinny, too short, or how they look. Or they may even be more emotional than usual. If your child has experienced trauma or you're unsure, tap into some local resources that you may have to see if they can assist you. Look for support groups, youth programs, therapists, and other activities to help your youth through their hardships. Lastly, be kind to yourself as a parent. If your child has experienced trauma or you think they have been experiencing trauma, you should also seek therapy or support groups for yourself as well. It was a pleasure speaking to you on Letters to the Imperfectly Perfect Mom. If you need anything, feel free to contact me via email at lakeetawatts@essentiallyempoweredinc.org. That's Lakita Watts at essentiallyempoweredinc.org. Or you can reach me by phone at 262-424-6218. Sincerely, Lakita Watts, your trauma-informed specialist.
Hey, hey. This is your coach, Denna Michelle, and I am here with Lakita Watts. And Lakita Watts was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She is the founder of Essentially Empowered, Inc. She is a certified community health worker, and she also serves as a full spectrum community doula, and she's a certified breastfeeding specialist. She started her own organization when her son was hurt in a car accident back in 2016. Lakita's other children witnessed this, and together they suffered a great deal of PTSD. Lakita is like most mothers. She was tired and upset and equipped her children with the necessary coping mechanisms to teach them to get through this. Felt like she was failing. Because of this, Essentially Empowered was born. And because of that, she is here with us and she's going to help us talk about trauma and PTSD. Welcome, Lakita.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So I just wanted to have you start by telling us about yourself that was not said in your intro, as well as your family dynamics.
So, as Dina mentioned, I'm Lakita Watts. I'm a mother of 5 now. So, back then, I only had 4 and I have 5 now. My youngest is 1. I'm also married. And in addition to what Dina has shared about me, I'm also a nursing student. And so I'm just getting some things together and really trying to bring awareness around trauma and trauma-informed care, especially amongst the communities that our organization serves. So that's a little bit extra about me.
And you also said that you gave us the age of your 1-year-old. How old are your other 4 kids? And like boys, girls, like what do you have?
Okay, so I have 3 boys, 2 girls. So my boys are 15, 6, and 1, and my girls are 13 and 9 years old.
Busy, wide age. So you have teenagers and a toddler. I can't say infant because he's over 1, so a toddler.
Very much a toddler.
A boy toddler or just like a toddler?
He is a boy toddler. He's already standing on stuff, trying to jump off of it and giving me the mommy heart attacks that we all get.
Okay, wow. So I'm loving your family dynamic. So mom mean to you? So that's kind of my question that I begin to ask all of my moms that come on here. So what does being a mom mean to you?
To me, being a mom is someone that provides unconditional love and support. It means being present even when you don't want to be. It means being aware and having self-humility, self-awareness, because a lot of times, especially as parents, we just kind of get trapped into our own stuff, right? Everybody has their things that they're going through. Everybody has some type of trauma. And when you see kids, most of the times people think that children don't have problems or issues that they're personally dealing with. To me, being a mom is someone that's able to really be able to support their children through whatever it is that they're going through, regardless of if they think it's important to them or not.
So I heard you mention a lot about what they're going through. So do you think that a lot of times that children, like when we have trauma, does it affect our children, or do the children like kind of experience their own trauma, or a little bit of both?
I definitely think a little bit of both, just because you can get that generational trauma. Youth can get impacted by so much. So trauma, depending on what it is, it's not just based on your experience. You can get that secondary trauma. It's called vicarious trauma. So I definitely think it's a little bit of both.
And how do we know if somebody is experiencing trauma or PTSD, or is there really like a difference between trauma and PTSD?
There is a difference. So trauma is more of the actual experience. PTSD is the effects that's caused behind the trauma. And so for the PTSD aspect of it, there are a lot of factors that plays into it. And folks should definitely, get assessed by a doctor if they think that they're feeling or experiencing PTSD. But a lot of what we see, most parents might not recognize it right away. They might see it as their children acting out. But so the child might be experiencing anxiety and just like extreme nervousness and, might self-isolate, whereas, especially in our teens, and whereas the parents might take that as, the child is just being like really guarded, being moody, don't want to be around anybody because they're going through their teenage phases, where in actuality, they're really just dealing with some things on the inside. So you have that anxiety, you have sometimes some paranoia. Sometimes when it comes to actually the feelings in the body, you might have, heart racing. You might have sweaty palms, like things like that.
Wow. I now I have to pay attention to my teenagers. So I'm like, I know that they have some, and my daughter tends to shy away from some things. So I might have to check with her and see. So what are some things that we can do so that we don't like offend them or set them off? Because I do have my 14-year-old daughter, and some things have happened in our lives where now she kind of isolates herself in her room. So like all of my other children are gone out doing something, hanging out with friends, even my 6-year-old, but my 14-year-old is stuck in her room and doesn't want to go out or do anything. So what are some ways that I can possibly talk to her and see if she's dealing with some trauma, or if this really is just the teenage phase without like really pressuring her or offending her?
Yeah, definitely, because she's a teenager, and if her room is her safe space, then that's where I would go to start the conversation. And when you go in there, I'll just say, "Hey, I just want you to know that I'm here to share some space with you," and just, be knowledgeable and mindful, and letting her know that when you say space, you're talking about that mental space, that emotional space, that you're there for her. And I would just straight ask, is there anything in her life right now that's happening that she wants to stop? And usually children tend to open up when you ask them that question. They might be a little guarded at first, but they usually open up because it kind of catches them off guard, like, oh, somebody is actually asking me what is happening right now that I want to stop. And you'd be surprised what will come from that. And so I think asking those type of questions, especially open-ended questions, can really get the ball rolling of seeing what really is bothering your child and then going from there.
So then will I do the same thing, for instance, if for my 6-year-old? So like, will I be able to have that same conversation with him in his space?
Yep. Yep. Most definitely. Like I said, pick their comfort zone and talk about it, and just make sure that you're knowledgeable, that you're sharing that space with them. And it's a judge-free zone. That's the one time they can talk to you about, well, I shouldn't say one time, but most youth feel like, there's my parents and then there's my friends, and I'm afraid to say certain things to my parents because I think I'm gonna get in trouble. So when I say let them know that this is the one time where they won't get in trouble, sometimes you have to acknowledge that in front of them out loud for them to feel like, okay, whatever I'm about to share, I can share it. I don't have to hear any pushback around it. So you can definitely have that conversation with all of them. And essentially Empowered, we do that with all age groups. And all of them have responded to it.
Okay, so we answered a lot of the questions that I have on here, and some more questions was coming up as we were talking. So we talked about it. So for instance, if a parent have not noticed signs in their child and their child continues to have trauma, what effects do it have on the children if they continue to go through and keep experiencing trauma, or trauma untreated, I should say?
They could develop other mental health issues. They can actually become resentful. They can grow to feel like no one cares about what they're dealing with, or no one understands what they're dealing with, or they might, grow really self-conscious or really insecure about maybe what I'm dealing with isn't really real, and so they might, develop all of these negative thoughts about themselves. So it's definitely something that parents should really tap into. And I know there's a lot of families that feels like going to therapy means that there is a label on their child. But I just like to share that, just try to set your beliefs to the side and see what's really going on with your child. Because in the present moment, your child is physically there with you. And you don't want to wake up and wish that, oh my God, I wish I would have got my child some help, or I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention. So not saying that all youth have to go to therapy, just make sure that you weigh all of your options as a parent.
So what are some other options? So if like we ask the kid and they even think, well, I don't want to go to therapy because I'm gonna be labeled. Because a lot of teenagers think that, like going to therapy, and even adults, some of us do as well, think that if we're going to therapy that, we're labeled, something's wrong with us. What are some other things that we can do for our children if we know that they're experiencing trauma and they don't want to go to therapy?
I definitely say, as long as your child isn't experiencing those psychological barriers that could be harmful to them, or for them causing harm to someone else, definitely do alternative methods. So those could be, additional support groups. And support groups where there's other like-minded individuals or other children or youth or teens that is experiencing something similar to what they're doing, to where they can kind of bounce off of each other and talk about what they're experiencing. You can do, a lot of those self-care activities. So maybe do some art therapy or, nature walks, and just really activities that kind of builds confidence amongst the child and really get them to talking. So that's why previously when I was saying, go into their space, their sacred space, and have those conversations, because they're already relaxed. And so, just continuing to build out a routine like that, that shows that you as the parent is present with them and for them, to kind of help them coach through whatever it is that they're dealing with.
So I know we spent some time talking about children and their trauma. So now us as moms, and I know we've experienced trauma, especially now, living in 2022, we just been in a pandemic for 2 years. A lot of us have lost jobs. A lot of us have gotten through some other tough times, like with, being locked up in a house with all the kids and the husbands and the dog and the cats and everybody in the house, which, piles onto that trauma after trauma. What are some things that we can do as moms that with our own trauma?
Well, the very first thing is acceptance. If you can get yourself in the mindset that I am not okay, and recognizing that it's okay to not be okay, that's the very first step into really taking control of yourself, of what you got going on. And then the second thing is to be open to receiving help. And like I was saying, for the youth, that could look like support groups. It could look like, self-care for yourself, whatever it is that you have to do to feel good and get yourself through that. But it could also look like therapy. Not everyone wants to go to therapy, obviously, because people have their feelings or whatever, but definitely finding that something that you can do, like to develop a routine to keep yourself, healthy, mentally healthy and emotionally healthy.
So now, will it ever go away, or do we have to do something? So if we just decide that we wanted to do nothing, will it ever go away?
I personally don't think it ever goes away. I think even for the healthiest person, right, it doesn't go away. It's always a memory subconsciously in the back of our minds. It's something that we have experienced, something that has greatly impacted us, but you can healthily grow through it. So, and that's why I say, don't do activities that avoids all of those emotions, all of those anxieties, or whatever those uncomfortable feelings are. Don't avoid those, embrace those, so that you can get yourself through it. Embrace them. And as you're embracing them, try to do something while you're working through that process. Because if you continue to avoid it, all you're doing is pushing down a ticking bomb. And once you let go, it's going to blow up. And you don't want that, especially during a pandemic. That's a whole nother conversation. So yeah, definitely just be open to receiving support and speak on it. Tell people, find resources and tap into other like-minded individuals, or find community health workers, or tap into whatever your resource is to try to get additional support and help, because mamas definitely need it.
We definitely do. So we talked about being a ticking time bomb. So what happens if it's been trauma that we've experienced for years and years? Because like I just said, even in the beginning of this pandemic, that has been 2 years. So what about if things were happening even before the pandemic, and now we have the pandemic that was just on top of that? Is there a time limit on how, what we can do for the trauma that's been years and years, where we possibly don't know exactly what that trauma is because more trauma has happened? Is there something that we can do to help us to figure out what our triggers, as you were saying, so that we don't explode?
Yeah, so I don't think there is a time limit, because I believe experiences impact our lives in whatever way. And like I said, if you push down your emotions, it's going to come out one way or the other. Just like when you think about veterans, when they first come home, they might seem perfectly fine, but as the years go by, something comes out of that and they start to change. Trauma is the exact same way for everybody. So that's why it's very important to really tap into your resources or support. Another thing you can do too, when you have those anxiety attacks or panic attacks or whatever it is, because some people don't even know what those are, and that's okay. But when you start feeling stressed or sweaty or nervous, or your heart is racing, or whatever that anxiety looks like for that person, once you come out of that, I will journal what you were doing before. Journal your environment, the smell, the people, whether it's daytime, nighttime, any and everything that you can journal about your experience in the moment, journal that. And then just keep a track of it for as long as you want to, and see if you notice a pattern. And if you notice a pattern, then that's likely where your triggers are. And so then with that, you might be able to, control a little bit of it or a lot.
And so that is also something that we can have our children do as well. Like if they're experiencing trauma, to have them kind of journal it, draw it, write it out as well.
Yeah, definitely have, especially if they're younger, or if you just have some youth that like really likes drawing or art or whatever that looks like, whether it's digitally or whatever that looks like, that's when I would definitely tap into that. And you don't even have to tell them exactly what it is for. You can just say, why don't you draw your feelings, or why don't you let's do some art together. Let's spend some time together. And I just want you to draw whatever is on your heart. And usually that'll really help too. And you will notice the patterns in that too. And for your teens, definitely I would do the journaling or the log, and seeing if you notice a pattern.
Okay, so I know we talked about us being moms, we talked about teenagers, we talked about kids. Is it possible that in the womb, the prenatal can affect us? Like if mom has trauma when she's pregnant, is it possible that we can pass trauma on to our unborn babies?
Yep, absolutely. There's something called epigenetics, which is basically the study of how your behaviors and environment can cause changes that affect the way our genes work. And so what that looks like when you're pregnant, right? So you know how they say, the doctors say, oh, don't be stressed out, or try not to be stressed out because your baby can feel everything that you're going through. That's kind of basically what epigenetics is, right? So that mom is going through all that stress, all of that anxiety, or whatever that is. And then all of that energy is into her belly. And if you recall being pregnant, sometimes you can feel that tension in your belly. And so when a mom is pregnant, she's carrying her child, her child's child, and that child's child. And so all of that begins with that intergenerational trauma, and that can all travel. And so that's why it's very important, especially for moms and doulas, to be connected when in labor. That's a whole nother conversation too. So that they can have better birth outcomes, and so that, we can, break those generational curses and get all of the negativity out of and away from mom, because it can truly affect the child.
So now what if some of that trauma includes, because you say when you're pregnant and it's the dad. So like the dad is there and he's helping you and he wants to be around the child, whether born or in utero. What are some things that you say as moms can do when we're in those type relationships, when the relationships, it's what's causing the trauma?
I would definitely see about getting that couples therapy. Just because if it's a relationship trauma, you got to have that communication. And if it's a relationship like that, that means communication at home, alone, outside of therapy might not be working. And so you might need a mediator. Even if you don't want to go to an actual therapist, you might need a mediator to, help with that communication and see what's really happening. And then same thing, journaling what exactly in the relationship is causing mom to be uncomfortable or to be stressed or whatever it is that she's dealing with, and see if there is a pattern. And if there is, tackle those. If there isn't, still tackle those until you can figure out a neutral grounds with your partner and figure out, okay, what is it exactly that's causing me so much stress? And if it's something that's completely out of your control, then you just make sure that you tap into all of your self-care techniques and all of your resources. But if it's a situation where mom is in danger, then that's a different story. And we would have to really get that mom some additional help and support.
So is there anything else you want to let us know about trauma and being informed about trauma as far as a mother goes, as far as with our children goes, pregnancy, anything that you would want to share dealing with trauma?
I think just to let people know that I think everybody has experienced some type of trauma, especially women of color, and that you are not alone in dealing with what you're dealing with. just as there is more than one person giving birth, there is more than one person in this world that's experiencing something very similar to what you're experiencing. And reaching out to receive help and support does not make you less than a mom. It does not make you weak. It does not make you a negative person or anything like that. It just makes you wholesome and it makes you healthy. And so tapping into your resources, getting control of any anxiety that you're dealing with or any mental health concerns that you might have is the best thing you can do for yourself and for your family as a mom.
So I like to close with my favorite question is, what is your imperfectly perfect mom moment?
My imperfectly perfect mom moment. The funniest thing I can think of is, so we've all grown up on the tooth fairy and the bunny rabbit, all of that. And yep, at least all of my children, I have forgotten about the tooth fairy before. And I had to say that, she just told me to hold on to it and she gave me your money for you and all of that. And I didn't put it under the pillow because I don't know. I just made up all types of stories. So that is probably my most funniest and most reoccurring and perfectly perfect mom moment, because I will forget about the whole tooth fairy and make up a whole nother story. I have told my children that I was in the room talking to Santa and helping them wrap gifts because I didn't know how to get around that when they discovered it. So
Oh, that is so cute. And okay, the funny thing about that is my son does not believe in Santa Claus. So he knows that Santa Claus does not exist because I really don't do Christmas like that. However, we do the Tooth Fairy. And we were in the Wisconsin Dells maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he lost his tooth while we were in Wisconsin Dells. And I had no cash on me to put under his pillow. So I said, the Tooth Fairy couldn't find us while we were at the Dell. So that is so hilarious. And then as soon as we got home, he put his tooth under the pillow. Like as soon as we got home, like, okay, she gonna find us today. But he does not believe in Santa Claus. His thing is, which he doesn't ruin it for anybody else. He'll tell everybody else, it's whoever you believe in. So if people believe in Santa Claus, he's real to them, and he doesn't believe in Santa Claus. So Santa Claus is not real to him. So it's funny that he does believe in a tooth fairy because it involves him getting money on a regular basis right now versus him getting presents on Christmas, which is just one time a year. He like, I rather believe in this lady. I'm losing teeth left and right, so I'm just collecting money. So, but yes, that's funny.
yeah, I've definitely told my kids that the tooth fairy was sick a couple times because I forgot to take the tooth out. So, so I get it.
Yeah, so I share that moment with you. So yes, you're just like you said, we're all not alone. We are not alone. Somebody is going through it with us.
Yep.
Okay, so if anybody wanted to get in contact with you, what is like your website, social media, email address, or ways that people can get in contact with you?
So people can get in contact with me by visiting my website, which is essentiallyempoweredinc.org, or on Facebook, it's Essentially Empowered Inc. But I think if you use the handle, is at Essentially Empowered Youth or something like that. And then my training is it's trauma informed care training. It's actually a series, but this first one is called Beyond the Truth, which is a trauma informed care course for birth workers. And so it's for anybody, really, and honestly, anyone can take it if you have any interest in birth work, or if you just are in the space working with prenatal families, it's definitely for you. And we cover a lot from epigenetics to trauma-informed care within pregnancy, during the birth, and during postpartum. And then the second day is trauma-informed care for you as the birth worker. It's a 2-day, 4-hour training. And then there is probably additional 1.5 to 2 hours online. And right now we do have early bird pricing, and you guys could just go to my website and get that information. It's essentiallyempoweredinc.org.
Any other classes or courses that you have, some for the children coming up?
We do actually have a couple of things. So for the youth, we have our actively releasing trauma workshops, which is an acronym for ART. And the youth meet, we're finishing out the rest of the month. Right now they're meeting on Sundays from 2 to 4. They're learning about mindfulness, a little bit of self awareness and humility, and how to like cope with anxiety and depression, and having that self-care and being able to do some art and just be free and spirited in the environment. And we don't let parents in the space, so they really get to be as free as they want to be. And we are practicing COVID precautions, so all of them wear masks and they all receive like their own canvases and just a bunch of goodies for coming to the workshops. And then starting in March, we have our 4-series workshops for the dads. So dads get to participate in the first workshop is positioning. So they get to learn how to support their laboring partner while they're in labor. Then there's the paternal postpartum depression workshop, where they'll learn a little bit about paternal postpartum depression, what that looks like, how to support themselves if they experience it, and things like that. The third one is postpartum care from the dad's perspective and things that they're looking to receive support from, as well as how to support their birthing person. And then the last one is advocacy and teaching them how to advocate for themselves and their birthing person within health systems. So, and then we have a host of other workshops that we do, and they're all on the website. But right now, those are the ones that's the newest, and that's that'll be starting if they haven't already started. And the dads workshops and the youth are all free.
I just want to make sure that they have all the information necessary that they need, that the services that you can provide to help them with trauma. So that way, if they need additional help or support with trauma, that they definitely know that they can come to you. And not only do you deal with just the children, but you actually are branching out and working with dads as well as with moms, especially when they're going through the birthing process, even like with the doula as well, so that they're not having that trauma while they are pregnant, or dealing with their trauma, I should say, while they're pregnant, as well as helping the dads.
Yeah. And we're actually, one last thing that I totally forgot to mention, since we're talking about trauma, is for our youth, we are rolling out our 3-month Beyond the Truth support groups, I guess you could call it. But it's really not a group. What happens is the youth are assigned to a mental health advocate, and they do weekly home visits for 3 months. And each week they're working on a different topic. And so the first one might be confidence. The second one might be, humility. The third one might be something else. And it's just to really like tap into, the trauma that the children are experiencing, but helping them to kind of get through that, but on a more intimate level within the home, so that the youth can feel a little bit more comfortable, as opposed to being at a school setting or just in the therapy office.
So you going into their space as well, like you were saying for me to go into my kids' space, y'all going to their space?
Yeah, we in their space, in their room, on the floor, wherever the parents tell us to go, that's where we at.
Okay, well, I just want to have them make sure that they have all your things. So the last thing I want them to hear is, again, how they can get in contact with you. So that way, if they need any of your services, they are able to get in contact with you. So if you can just tell us the best way that they can get in contact with you.
The best way would be via phone. You can either call or text. We do text back. The business line is 262-424-6218.
Thank you again. I really appreciate and am honored to have you on as my first guest.
Thank you. It was an honor to be on.
Thanks, moms, for listening in to our podcast. We look forward to hearing from you, or actually, no, we look forward to you listening in next week.